Hi there, my name is Max Morgan. I'm a recent double first class graduate in English Language and Literature from the University of Oxford, and I've been tutoring for just over 3 years now, specialising in English drama to A level, then English drama French to GCSE or equivalent, and I also offer assistance with the Oxbridge and other university application and admission process. So today I'm going to be answering a few questions about my experience as a tutor. The first question is, what do you think are the three most important qualities in a teacher? For me, the first quality is vitally developing a relationship or a bond with the pupil, which is really important in any kind of healthy student-teacher relationship. Establishing this rapport means it's easier for us to get on with one another, but it also initiates a level of mutual respect in these sessions as well. In turn, this boosts the pupil's engagement with the lesson and the content, and it means I'm able to find out their strengths and their weaknesses, what they like and what they don't like, and push them on both ends. And whether this is sort of finding out a topic that they particularly hate and getting them to love it, or finding a kind of formula that they can take into the exam hall and apply to the question when it comes up, and sort of breaking it down and finding a way to make answering the question a little bit easier under a lot of stress. So to cap this off, this really important bond means that they can be honest with me about how they're finding the teaching, my style, how they're finding the content, or whether they're being stuck on anything. Because of the nature of private tuition, these sessions can be quite limited and are so precious. So it's really important to make sure that we maximise their productivity and leave no stone unturned. Building on my first quality, the second most and really important trait of a good teacher is challenging and pushing their pupil. Again, one of the beautiful things about private tuition is that it takes place in this one-on-one session. So this is something I've really benefited from over the last 3 years at Oxbridge with the tutorial system, where it's just you and the tutor in the classroom, and there's not lots of other students around you who are, by design, diverting their attention or disrupting the flow of the class. And this means that in our sessions, we can absolutely nail the basics and cover everything that would be taught in the classroom until near perfection, essentially, and hopefully. And then, and this is the slightly exciting part, we can push that a little bit further to hit that grade 9 or A star, to make sure that the pupil and their work really stand out to the examiner and grab their attention. I would also caveat that by saying that this kind of like extra pushing and flair, as I like to think of it, is not just reserved for pupils who are already hitting the top grades. This is something we can do with everyone. So once there's a concrete foundation of understanding, there's absolutely no reason why we can't bring into a sort of standard essay a little bit of panache to, again, make it leap out to the examiner. Thirdly, and most importantly for me, I want my lessons to be fun, or at least enjoyable. I want my students to take pleasure in my teaching and their learning. And so this is a bit of a combination of my last 2 points. I can't profess to being much of a scientist or anything like that. I'm really bad at maths. But there are scientific Harvard-backed studies that prove that students learn more when they're enjoying their classes. And so I try and take this on board, and my approach is something between tailored tutoring and also balanced with kind of active learning and some entertaining twists and games and that kind of thing. And I think this comes back to my belief that education is incredibly valuable, especially in terms of the humanities for personal development and growth. That as much as we can approach curriculums, syllabuses and exams as formulaic or prescriptive, because let's be honest, they really can be sometimes, it's always worth remembering that somewhere deep underneath the assessment objective, there is a genuine value and meaning to be derived from reading and studying, particularly English, drama and languages as well, at least in my opinion. And they can enhance our enjoyment of life and also how we approach it and other people as well. And I think it's really important not to forget that sometimes, especially when we're coping with so many different subjects and think about them in terms of grades and marks and percentages. Kind of want to strip it back to its fundamental elements. And I always find that kind of makes it a lot more entertaining for the people. Okay, so the next question is, what are your best experiences in teaching? And can you tell us something about your subject which you/your students have found most exciting and fascinating? I think a classic answer for this one is, of course, when you hear back from students who have improved their marks, got a better grade than they were predicted, or get into the university of their choice. That's always really rewarding and slightly relieving too, to know that you've not led them down a stray path or anything like that. But for me, at least, I think what I find most fascinating and enjoyable about tutoring is when I'm actually corrected or taught something by my pupil, which is not to say that I'm constantly making mistakes in my sessions, but every once in a while a student might pick up on something I've sort of said on the cuff and challenge it. And I find that is a great sign of confidence, but also a willingness to engage in a discussion and debate. And I get something out of that as well and get to learn something new. So the final question is, why did you get into teaching and what else do you do for work? So I initially got into teaching about 3 years ago, just before going to university, by being asked by family, friends, and through old teachers at my school to help out with things like GCSE subjects at first and Oxbridge application advice. And it's sort of grown on from there, predominantly by word of mouth. So I've been very lucky in that regard. And I've tutored and done sessions and all sorts of random things that I would have never thought of over the last 3 years, and I've really enjoyed it. So in terms of other work, I'm actually currently in Paris, in France, working part-time as an English language assistant at a lycée in the banlieue or the suburbs just outside of Paris. I've only been here for a week when I'm recording this, but I've loved it so far, and the children are quite cheeky but really fantastic and bright. When I'm in the UK, I also work as a production runner or in locations on high-end TV. So if that's something you're interested in, I can share a few bits of industry gossip or stories at the end of the sessions. But I'm also predominantly an independent film and theatre maker as well. So I set up a production company 2 years ago, and since then I've written and directed about 5 different plays through that company, and most significantly a feature film called Breakwater. So part of the reason for me working here in France part-time is so I can write in my free time, but it also leaves me ample time to tutor.